Hello and welcome to the Psychic Stories podcast, encouraging conversations about mental health. Today I'm speaking to Estelle Keeber, founder of Immortal Monkey, a support platform for business owners from startup to level up. Estelle, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. I am very well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, we are honoured for you to be here. And the goal of today, we want to have an open and honest conversation about your own mental health journey and to get some insight into the tools and techniques that have helped you along the way. By discussing your journey, we hope to share and normalise these conversations, as often people are not alone in these experiences. Does that sound good to you?
I am very excited and cannot wait to get started.
Amazing. Well, on that note, we would love to hear a bit more about your mental health journey.
Okay, where do I start with this? So if we sort of go back to my probably mid-teens, that was when I would say I probably started to suffer with any sort of mental health issues. But at the time, I didn't really understand what was going on. You know, there wasn't very much education. We're talking, I am 38 now. And, we're talking back when I was like 14, 15.
Yeah.
So
No one was talking about it, were they?
There just wasn't a lot of support. And the word depression and mental health had such a stigma attached to it. You were mental. If you had depression, you were mental and had something wrong with you. And so that I don't think helped at all. So it was very much something that was going on inside me. And I just really didn't understand it because I hadn't been educated. I thought that maybe everybody felt like this. And so I think that's where my mental health journey, I guess, started there, because prior to that, I'd always, felt that I'd had a reasonably positive mental health and, healthy mental health as, a child.
Yeah.
And it's really quite scary to think now, I was 14, 15 at the time when I started to struggle. Nowadays, kids of that age have so many more pressures than what I had at that point, So if I was there struggling with my mental health and I was having a reasonably, calm time, all of these kids now that are going through this with all the added pressures of, examinations, COVID happening, social media, there's so much more through into the mix. So I think that was where I started to realize that something wasn't right, that, all of my friends didn't feel the way that I was feeling.
And if you don't mind me asking, was it something that kind of like, a cloud just descended over you, or was it some stuff that was going on during that time?
I think it was perhaps a mixture of the two, because I was, the sort of person that was a little bit strange at school, shall we say. I was okay with standing out. So that kind of got me attention, sometimes in good ways, but sometimes in bad ways. I was quite academic. So again, in one hand, you're being praised and congratulated. But then again, at that time, nowadays, it's really celebrated to be smart.
Yeah.
But back then, it was kind of like you didn't want to be the smart kid because everybody was going to, you were going to stand out even more. So I think it was, just the fact of growing and that, teenage angst and not knowing where I fit into the world, all of those emotions. And then to have, like this feeling of overwhelm with it, I think that's the difference in what I was going through and what other teenagers were going through, because we were all going through these things, but they weren't feeling this, huge sense of overwhelm and, distress that I was feeling. So that's when I started to realize that what I was feeling wasn't normal. And it was at that point that it probably took quite a while for me to go to see my GP. And I found that the only thing that I was offered was medication. They didn't really give me any other options at all. And it was kind of, here you go, take these, and you'll start to feel better.
Sorry to interrupt there. Do you think that's changed? Because, I mean, I'm still hearing, I spoke to a friend last week who had that exact experience. And that's what, like bordering on 20 years later.
Yes, it is still happening. In fact, I had a friend call me yesterday morning. She was having a really bad anxiety attack, and she'd spoken to her GP, and they had given her medication, antidepressants. You know, it was anxiety that she was suffering from. So, you know, for me now, having the knowledge and experience I have, it's about thinking about, well, what's causing that anxiety? If we can figure out what's causing that anxiety, we can work on it, rather than try, you know, maybe it isn't a chemical imbalance, because that's another thing that I'm really passionate about. So I am all for holistic therapies, alternative therapies. And at one point I was very against medication because I had been passed from pillar to post. Try this, do that. Nothing had ever really worked for me. In fact, it had actually made me feel incredibly worse at times. So this was when I started to look into alternative therapies. But I would also
because you've got no other choice, right? It's kind of like, this isn't working, I've got to look elsewhere.
That's right. But then also saying that there have been times when I know that medication is needed, because sometimes, you know, it is, you know, and this was the hardest thing for me to grasp, that actually something is wrong inside me, that, you know, it's a hormone imbalance. It's something that's making me feel this way. And I need to, you know, take a prescribed medicine to make this right, because there's nothing else that I'm going to do that's going to make that happen. And that was really big for me, because it was like I'd lost the control. It was like I was having to then rely upon, you know, this drug to bring me back to how I was. So I had a really kind of a really up and down relationship with prescription meds. And but now, coming out, you know, 20 years later, I would say there is a place for everything. So, you know, definitely try out the holistic therapies and, you know, all of those sort of things.
Just find what works for you.
Open-minded. You know, be open-minded. Everybody is different, and medication works differently for every person, as do alternative therapies. You know, I absolutely love yoga and meditation, and my friends love other sorts of things that are very much, you know, holistic and natural, but, you know, each to their own. And I think that is what's important, is trying to find what works for you, because you know, running, like we all know, being outside in the fresh air is the best thing we can do to boost our mood, to lift depression. But I know, because I've been there, that the last thing you want to do when you are depressed and in that state is go outside. Like, it really is. So, okay, then you can't go outside. What else can you do that's going to help you to lift your mood? Reading, meditation, you know, whatever it may be for you, that's fine. And that's what was important for me, was finding the right sort of tools and techniques and resources. And again, this has become easier and easier as I've grown older, because the stigma is, you know, we are breaking away from it a little bit. I would say, to be fair, we've gone the opposite way, if I can say that. You know, right now everybody's stressed, everybody's depressed, everybody's got anxiety. And I think that sometimes it can be these words can be thrown around like buzzwords, and it actually like takes the onus away from people that are actually, you know, I think that people need to be clear on what is stress, what is anxiety, what
and
is
actually
depression.
Understand what they mean.
And it's all about education. It's all about education. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing my story with people, because I did feel that stigma for so long. And now, you know, I embrace it. And every time I go, you know, I don't have sort of low mood episodes hardly, you know, anywhere near as often as I used to. But, you know, I embrace them now and think, you know, okay, I got to get through this. And I now see that every time I do get through it, I'm learning from it, which then enables me to then be able to help and support other people, because I genuinely understand how they feel about the situation.
So with these tools and kind of tips that have worked for you along your way, and you've kind of, you've gathered them over the last 20 years, like how have they helped during some of the challenges that you faced over the last 20 years? I know you're a mum of two boys. That, I mean, that's a massive change in terms of, like, I've got a daughter, so I mean, I know that's a big change from being not a parent to a parent, in relationships as well. There's a lot of things and insecurities that come out. How have these tools and tips helped you along the way, if you don't mind talking about those kind of situations?
No, of course. So I would say that it's only been probably the last 5 years that I've really started to build on the resources that I have. So prior to that, it had always been medication. That was all that I was getting. Occasionally, the GP would prescribe some counseling or CBT, but predominantly I was just, given medication every single time. And it wasn't until I started looking about 5 years ago, I started a new business, and that led me to be connecting with a lot of different people who I wouldn't normally have connected with. This then opened my eyes to lots of different holistic therapies. So, like I mentioned, I love yoga. I am in no way an expert, but I love doing yoga. I do meditation. And again, this is something that I would say try. So I remember the first time I tried meditation, and this guy was saying, imagine my fingertips slowly running across your head. And I'm thinking, this is weird.
Yeah.
Like, I just, like, I felt like I was giggling, and it was like, this is really weird. But when you get, I did it a couple of times. I was like, come on, give it a go, don't give up. And I did it a couple of times, and it's actually a skill like anything else that we have. You have to learn, and you build up that skill set around it. So that was when I really started to understand that self-care and building on your mental well-being is really, really important. So I use different meditation apps. I love to go out walking in the woods with my dog, just being in nature and grounded. And it is a struggle on a daily basis. We all need these tools. Taking a breath. I go outside. My boys drive me mental. They're 10 and 12. So for anybody that's have boys at that age, they're either trying to, tear each other up, throw each other down the stairs, all of that fun stuff. So even on a day-to-day basis, I know now that there's things that I can do that will help, calm me down. So whether this is deep breaths, having, a cup of herbal tea, I go and sit outside, and I like openly say to the kids, I'm going outside right now. I don't want to be disturbed because I need to go clear my mind and just breathe. And it sounds ridiculous, like, why do you need to go outside to breathe? But that's my time that then just, brings me back round, makes, we all have this processing system. And sometimes, like the computer, it needs shutting down. It just needs to like restart, reboot, and it's going to work really well. It's like switching off the power button. So I think it's finding things like that that fit with my life. And I think that's what it is that people need to find, something that fits their life.
And how have you found that that kind of that toolkit has worked during a kind of, because like you said, on the day-to-day you've got your toolkit of what you want to do. When you're faced with a really difficult situation, or a very difficult, for example, difficult relationship, or something that's really intense, like how have those tools helped you through something like that? Or was that something that you've needed to be a bit more kind of intensive support?
I think it's a mixture, I guess. The people that surround you are very, very important as well in the sort of mood that you have. And that is crucial, if I'm honest, surrounding yourself with the right sort of people. But I think on a day-to-day basis, it's a continuous thing. I think it's something that builds up gradually. So, we're by practicing these different ways of, trying to calm my anxiety. I know that when I do get to that moment, we all have that moment, someone nicks our parking space, or, says something we don't agree with, when you're like, ah. But I know now that, I don't really get to that point because there's lots of things that I can do before that happens. So I think it's been a journey to get to this point.
Yeah.
I still don't feel I'm there. You know, I have meds that help with my anxiety, and it's insane to think it's took 20 years for me to be prescribed something that's actually a beta blocker. So for my anxiety, I'd never been given anything like this. I always really struggled. One of my worst symptoms was I shook so badly. I'd had blood tests, I'd had brain scans, and nobody understood why. And then they tried me on a new medication about 6 months ago, and bam, just like that, it stopped, and it's helped my anxiety massively. But also, I'm also using my different tools as well. So we're not getting to that point of, you know, breakdown. Oh my God, how am I going to get through this? Because we're kind of taking it step by step.
And have you found, like, if you have, because you mentioned breakdown as well, like, have there been periods where you have had breakdowns, and that is something that needs to, you know, you've kind of you've built yourself back up from?
Yes, most definitely. I think the worst for me was earlier in 2020. My business collapsed. It had been my entire passion. For 3 or 4 years, I'd been able to help millions and millions of business owners. And through making a few bad choices, shall we say, you know, I ended up watching my business be destroyed. And that, I think, was probably one of my lowest points, because not only, you know, it wasn't just my job, it was my whole life. It was my company. It was something I'd done every single day. And that was really, really hard for me. And that, I think, was probably, I remember sitting on the floor crying, feeling suicidal. It was absolutely horrific. But I left it, you know, probably 3, 4, 5 months to, you know, let myself grieve for, you know, the company that I had lost. And it was only after that that I started to realize, you know, my anxiety isn't really changing. And it took me sort of 6 months to go back to my GP and say, you know, I'm doing all of these different things, but I think I need some help with my anxiety. And that's when they introduced the new meds. And now, you know, that's helping fantastically with my anxiety. I have no racing heart, I have no shakes. But all the other things that I'm doing are managing my mental health as well. So again, it's that mixture of like pharmaceuticals, taking good care of myself, and also using these holistic approaches that kind of have found me in the middle. You know, hopefully as time passes, then I won't need the medication either. But, you know, I'm quite happy now to say, you know, okay, if we had a headache, we'd go and take an aspirin or a paracetamol. You know, if you had a broken arm, you'd go and get an arm cast. It's no different. And that is probably, I know we're going to be coming to a close soon. So that is like one thing I want to really stress to everyone, is that, you know, mental health is just as, if not more, so important than your general health. Because, you know, if things are not right in here, then the rest of, you know, the body is just going to go to pot. So really do take the time to make sure that you are working on your mental health, because it's like a muscle. Your brain's a muscle.
Absolutely. And well, just before we close up as well, you said I'm so sorry you went through that's such a difficult experience, especially when it's your entire life. But I'd love to hear a little bit towards the end about Immortal Monkey, because it seems like you've bounced back, and you're obviously an incredibly resilient woman, and you are still here, and you're still doing some amazing things. So I'd love to hear, you know, a bit more about Immortal Monkey.
Thank you so much for the compliments. It's always been, you know, something that I've been passionate about, is, you know, helping people that were like me. So when I first started my first company, I had no idea about business at all. I was spending hours on webinars at 2 a.m. and it was insane. And my passion was always creating a platform for people that they could go to one place and find everything that they could possibly need. And that's what we've been able to do with Immortal Monkey. We have our Facebook communities where people can go and connect and learn and support each other within their businesses. But we also have a membership site where there's over 30 different trainings to help you grow your business. So much content in there. And so I feel really, really blessed and lucky that I have the opportunity to continue to share my story. And the reason, again, that I'm so passionate about actually sharing my mental health journey is because people see from the outside, this huge success, and then, they don't see the pitfalls. They don't see behind the scenes. And so I want people that are listening to this, that if, you're going through a hard time right now, tomorrow's another day. And I know how difficult it can seem to be, thinking about tomorrow when you're in that space. But, I got through it. I am here. I'm like, if anybody wants to drop me a DM.
You're still fighting, aren't you? You're still going.
I'm still here. And that's the thing, it's not over until it's over, and it's definitely not over yet. So keep pushing on through whatever is happening. Tomorrow is another day, and there is always someone there. Always someone there, and don't ever feel alone.
And so honestly, thank you so much for your time and to sharing your experiences. It's been an insightful conversation, and also for being so honest as well, going through some of the challenges that you face as well. We really appreciate you telling your story.
Thank you so much for having me. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone listening. You can subscribe to us on most major podcast platforms, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Just search for Sidekick Community or Psychic Stories and we'll pop up. And please do give us a rating if you like the show. And do check out our free Psychic app for iPhone and iPad. Estelle has mentioned a whole range of exercises that have helped her. A lot of those exercises are actually on our app. And it's all free as well, as we're a charity. The app enables you to build a personalized wellbeing toolkit to help you deal with life's ups and downs. Just go to our website, www.sidekick.org.uk, and click the download now button in the header to take you to the App Store. Estelle, thanks so much again.